want the good news or the bad news first?
Let's start with the bad news.
Okay, well, I had the great pleasure of being dragged to the wonderful film called The Last Stand.
I've heard of this film.
You should. Arnold Schwarzenegger's return to film.
Triumphant return, Jason. Let's get it right.
Is that what I was supposed to
Yeah.
say when I left? Okay. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
Okay, that's fair.
Like if I were to sum it up, that's the one sentence I would use. Is it a comedy? Yes.
Okay.
Unintentionally.
Oh, good.
It is an action movie mostly, but it does have its moments where you're just kind of like, ooh, really?
Yeah.
The premise, really quick, is that there is a fugitive on the run, and he's trying to get to Mexico, and he has a lot of minions sort of paving the way, you could say, for his route from Las Vegas to the Mexico border via this small town in Arizona, which is also the small town where Arnold Schwarzenegger is the sheriff.
Right.
Because that makes sense.
Yes.
And along the way, antics ensue, of course, on both sides, both in the small town in Arizona, also in Las Vegas, and of course on the way there. And it comes to its nice conclusion. That's all I'm going to say.
Fair enough.
Perhaps in a future episode, like Spoil Theater or something,
Okay.
we can just have fun with it. It will probably be a fun rental for those of you who like nostalgia.
Oh, okay.
I asked myself, how much is the nostalgia playing here? And it's a lot. Put anybody else in the role, any sort of modern action star, and this movie would just not work whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
It works in that sense, but also it kind of works against itself because you're just kind of sad about the whole thing. Like,
Yeah.
like, oh, Arnold,
Yeah.
really? Like Sylvester Stallone is kind of doing the same thing. A couple of his movies, you're just like, oh, this is fun. Like you're just like you're into it, but then like the small boy inside of you kind of just is like,
Yeah.
I don't like this anymore. It does this thing early on in the movie where it kind of establishes the main villain, who is probably the weakest part of the movie. I'd say the sub-villain, sort of his main minion that's doing all this stuff to kind of get him to the Mexico border is actually way more interesting than the villain is, I thought.
Was that because of the acting or the character
The
itself?
acting did not help that much. The acting could have... His acting was worse than Arnold's acting, I will say.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
And it just really wasn't an interesting... He wasn't really an interesting bad guy because it was easy for him. Everything was just... He's this leader of this cartel, and so everything is just easy for him. And that's not interesting to me. There's nothing interesting about that
no
character.
conflict.
Yeah, there's no conflict. And he's racing a ZR1, a Corvette, from Las Vegas to that. And that's all he does in like 75% of the movie. Maybe more than that. He's just driving. Yay. You know, it's just like... there is one great line in the film where they're trying to determine why he's driving this car instead of like flying or they say, why doesn't he just use a helicopter? And they're like, the car's faster than a helicopter. And then there's a 20-minute sequence where the helicopter is keeping up with the car.
There is no universe, there is no car that is faster than a helicopter.
It's like,
Story logic.
yeah, it's like I know this Corvette is fast, but this is also like a slightly military grade helicopter following you. And they could have
Exactly.
literally extracted that line out of the movie and been like, he likes racing cars. Like that's the actual explanation. It's like he likes a challenge.
Yeah.
It's like I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
But the fact that they say, ooh, a helicopter's not as
Yeah.
fast, and then there's a 20-minute sequence where the helicopter's following the car pretty easily. Suffice to say, I'm in the back of the theater letting my opinion be known with my two friends and the 5 people in front of me, which luckily they were a little bit far away. And I was trying my best not to, analyze this too
Although
much.
I would love to see an action scene cut together, a chase scene where a car actually is faster than a helicopter, and the helicopter pilot just at the end of it just like throws his hat down. It's like,
Yeah, well,
I can't catch that car.
They actually kind of do that because here's why. The car applies its brakes and it's dark So then they just lose him. And then they're like, let's turn it around. And they don't put the light on the road.
Let's contrast that with another scene with a car and a helicopter that was amazing in a film called Drive.
Right.
The opening scene of the movie.
Right.
It's a perfect scene.
Yeah.
It's a perfect chase scene. And shows the skill of the driver.
Yeah.
And that's just dumb what they did.
There are simple solutions to many of the film's problems.
Yeah.
And you are welcome to vocalize them at your showing that you decide to go to, because I'm sure after this review you're just going to be, brimming over and just having to go. Really, it is a fun movie for that particular reason. It was just sort of like the perfect storm of going with the right people,
Yeah.
and just sort of letting myself go a little bit. Because let's say that Red Dawn was pretty much
Yeah.
the last movie that I kind of was holding back a little bit on. This one I just couldn't help it.
Yeah.
This is actually better than Red Dawn.
Really?
So if for my
Yeah.
viewers out there that enjoyed that review,
Someone out there is obsessively scaling all these films and is like, oh, I got to put Last Stand above Red Dawn.
yeah, it's my own personal flick chart.
Yeah.
It's not bad, but it's not good either.
Yeah. Okay.
It's worth watching if you just want to shut your brain off for a little while and watch something that Arnold's been in.
Yeah.
So Forrest Whitaker's in it. He's a little overkill.
Mm-hmm.
He's sort of cheesing it up a little bit, the serious stuff. Johnny Knoxville's in it. He actually is pretty good in it.
Really?
I actually kind of enjoyed his character. He doesn't play a big role, but he does play a little bit into the movie towards the end, especially, and a bunch of other character actors that you have noticed, or people from the small screen that are starting to get their legs a little bit on features. But it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. So there's that.
Okay.
There's that.
A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.